Greetings nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Commander Cheapskate Gamer Reviews. On this series, we take a look at different miniatures, products, as well as rule sets that are created for miniatures wargaming. And on today's episode, we are taking a look at Warhammer High Elves. Now, this set of army rules has actually been created by Mathias Eliasson. He is the author of the Warhammer Armies project blog. And on that site, he has pretty much created 8th edition rules for Warhammer Fantasy Battle for different armies that do not have rule books of their own, either because Games Workshop never decided to do so, or whatever the case may be. These are armies like the Kingdom of Ind, for example, Cathay, Albion. These are just some of the army rules that he's created for Warhammer 8th edition. He has also taken upon himself to create a 9th edition series of rules as well, updating Warhammer Fantasy Battle to 9th edition. And on his own, he's also created army books for each of the armies in that universe for 9th edition as well. Now, as you can see from this PDF document that I've downloaded from his website, it is extremely professional looking as well. In fact, if you did not know this already, you might have mistaken his work for actually official documents. I mean, that's how high quality his work really is. So for a couple of episodes now for Commander Cheapskate Reviews, we will be taking a look at the different army books that he has created for the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. Now, this video will be a little bit longer in length, and the reason why is because we will be taking an in-depth look at each of the different units that he has created for the High Elves. We'll be going over their special rules, talk about the positive as well as negative effects of these new edition, 9th edition rules as well, and overall think of what our overall impression is of the product. And considering that this material is absolutely free to download for the general public, it has already got a one-up on everything else already. In fact, in my opinion, Games Workshop should probably take a hint from a Mathias Eliasson, and the reason why is because he created all the rule sets first and then released it all at once, instead of having to wait like years, or in some cases not even get an update for any army rule books at all. So Games Workshop, you should probably take a note out of his book and do exactly the same thing for your products. So that being said, let's get this video review on a roll. Alright, so on today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the High Elves Army Book for 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy. So the first thing we'll do real quick is go ahead and scroll down to the table of contents. Like I said before, this is beautifully done. We have some beautiful desktop publishing work done on this document as well. It also looks very, very professional. Like I said before, if you were not even aware of it, you would have actually believed this was actually an official document. That's how good it really is. Now, with this army review book, we are going to skip the introduction as well as the Lords of Ulthuan. We'll be skipping most of the fluff on this one. The primary thing we'll be looking at, however, are the Glittering Host, which is basically the individual special rules for the army, as well as for the individual units and special characters. And we'll also take a look at the High Elves army list in terms of Lords, Heroes, core choices, special units, and rare units. We'll talk about their statistics as well as their point values as well. So first of all, let's go ahead and talk about the Glittering Host real quick. So I'm going to click on that real fast and go ahead and bring you into the army special rules on this one. So there have been some significant changes with the way that the 9th edition rules have handled High Elves. And here's the overall army special rules that you can see here. Now, as you can see in this one, we have a brand new special rule for the army called Elven Grace, which says models with this special rule have a dodge characteristic with 6-up special rule in close combat. However, this cannot be used against enemies attacking with a higher initiative value than a defending model. So right off the bat, always strike first, which was a rule that all Elven units had from both Wood Elves, Dark Elves, as well as High Elves. That is no longer the case with this army. Always strike first is no longer given for the individual units and has been replaced with Elven Grace instead. Same thing with the rule for Martial Prowess. Martial Prowess has also changed significantly as well. It says models with this special rule, but not any mounts, may reroll all to hit rolls of 1 when making close combat attacks. So because of that, that is significantly changed as well. Prior to this, Martial Prowess in the 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle allowed for units within the High Elves army to fight with an additional rank. That is no longer the case in this point, so because of that, you only get to reroll hits of 1 now. So whether you agree or disagree or feel this is a nerfing for the High Elf army, that's really entirely up to your decision on that one. Now, we also have this new rule for Valor of Ages. This one's relatively stayed the same, where basically you can reroll fail panic tests against Dark Elves and also have immunity to fear from Dark Elf units, so we do have that. However, we also start seeing the brand new rule Elf Bows and Longbows. This says Elven bows follow the rules for bows, all Elven longbows follow the rules for longbows, and all shots with these weapons have the armor piercing 1 special rule. Now, in case if you guys are not aware, in the 9th edition rules for Warhammer Fantasy Battle that Mathias Eliasson has created, what ends up happening is that for bows and longbows, so long as your archers don't move, they can actually shoot twice in the shooting phase. So that part's kind of cool as well. And so because of that, it just kind of makes these elven bows a little bit deadlier with giving you an additional armor piercing on that one as well. We also have Lilith's Blessing as well. And the rule for this one has changed significantly from the original 8th edition rules. In this case, it says models of this special rule add +1 to all dispel attempts. So you don't longer get a +1 for casting spells any longer. This one is purely defensive on that one. And then, of course, we have Ithilmar Barding. This one pretty much follows the same rules as before with armor saves that we have on this one as well. And I don't think I think he forgot to actually add this part here for the special rules, because originally Ithilmar Barding and Warhammer 8th edition did not limit your movement characteristic. So because of that, the rule still applies. Because if you look at the special rules here, in the original Barding rules for 9th edition, it tells you how it has -1 to movement. As you can see here, that's no longer there in that case. So in case if you're, you might want to watch out for that, just because, it's an easy rule to miss. So Ithilmar Barding does not count against your movement in this case for your cavalry miniatures. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about our different rules. So now we have commanders. As you can see, it's relatively stayed the same for princes and nobles as we did from the 8th edition rules. So as you can see, the only major difference really is the Elven Grace and Martial Prowess and Valor of Ages special rules. Same thing with mages. This part has actually stayed exactly the same as before. They can still use all 8 lores of battle magic, or they can use high magic. So because of that, we still have that. So that hasn't changed very much either. Now, Dragon Mages have changed slightly on this one as well. So let's go and talk about some of the changes that have taken place for Dragon Mages. So there's been a change in the Reckless rules. As you can see, it says when a Dragon Mage casts a spell, a free power dice is added to the casting attempt. So that is one of the major changes that we're seeing for Dragon Mages as well. This extra dice counts towards ultimate power and can cause a miscast as normal, and allows the Dragon Mage to roll more dice than he's normally allowed to. So that has changed a little bit with the Reckless rule for Dragon Mages as well. Same thing with the Warrior Mage. It says now Dragon Mage gets a +2 to cast the spell Flaming Sword of Ruin when targeting themselves. So that one has changed a little bit as well. Before, in the 8th edition of Fantasy, the Warrior Mage special rule basically made Dragon Mages they must always have this spell, and that is not necessarily the case anymore. This one, they get a casting bonus instead. Now, another addition that we see now is a brand new unit called Mist Weavers, what these characters are called. Now, in case if you've never seen this miniature before, the Mist Weaver character was actually a miniature. I believe it was featured in Warhammer Quest using the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar rules. So this is a brand new unit that you could use for that particular model as well. And of course, they got the fluff here, but let's talk about their statistics real quick. So they have movement 5, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, toughness 3, 2 wounds, 6 in initiative, 2 attacks, and 8 leadership. So stats is pretty much meh for the most part. But you're not taking this character for their stats. What you're taking them for, however, is for their mist magic. So because of that, Mist Weavers specialize in a powerful magic that calls upon the primal magic energies of the deep oceans. So as you can see here, they actually have their own spell effects on this case. So their signature spell is called Illusionary Assault. It casts upon a 7. It says Illusionary Assault is a hex spell with a range of 24 inches. The target unit must pass a leadership test. If failed, each model in the unit must fight a round of combat against itself. Any casualties inflicted count as having been made with shooting attacks and may cause panic. So this one is a very, very powerful ability right there, which is actually kind of cool. Then, of course, we have their 2 spells as well. Writhing Mist, which casts on a 7-up. It's a remain in play spell. The Writhing Mist is an augment spell with a range of 24 inches. Any enemy attacks targeted at the unit will suffer a -1 to hit penalty. So very powerful there. And then we also have the Mistress of the Deep ability, which is cast on a 9-up. It's a remain in play spell. Places an appropriate marker no larger than 1 inch in diameter to represent the Oceanade within 6 inches of the wizard. Whenever an enemy unit wishes to fire upon or declare a charge against a unit in the High Elf army, and must first measure the distance to the Oceanid. If the Oceanid is closer than the target unit, it must take a leadership test. If the test is failed, the enemy unit is distracted by the Oceanid's haunting song, and the attack/charge is not performed. If the test is passed, no Oceanid will have any effect against that unit for the rest of the game. The spell has no effect against units with immunity. So as you can see here, very, very useful buffs that you can give for your units as well, and this is actually kind of cool. In fact, if you look at a lot of the 9th edition army books that Mathias Eliasson has created, he's actually included quite a bit of Warhammer Age of Sigmar as well as Warhammer Warhammer Quest units to the various armies within the new edition rules. So if you are playing Warhammer Age of Sigmar and you want to go back to playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle, you can actually take some of those units and bring them with you into those games, which is just a really cool added bonus feature in my opinion. It makes this game extremely accessible for players of both Warhammer Fantasy as well as Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So that part is really, really cool. So moving on. So now we have another brand new unit called the Lords of Anarion. And this one is actually a brand new unit that we have here. Let's talk about the units real quick. So for the movement characteristic, they have characteristic of 5, 8 weapon skill, 7 ballistic skill, 4 toughness, and of course 3 toughness because they're elves. They have 3 wounds, 9 initiative, 5 attack, and 10 leadership. And as you can see here, we have some special rules for them. Elven Grace, they have Frenzy, they have the Hatred, Forces of Destruction special rule, Martial Prowess, and Valor of Ages. So these guys are kind of like your combat lords is how you pretty much work on them. So we have what's called Battle Trance. If a Lord of Anarion is in base contact with a friendly unit, he must pass the leadership test at the start of any round of combat he is involved in. If failed, he will make 1 attack on every model in base contact instead of attacking normally, roll to hit as normal. So that's one of the negatives of actually caking on one of these characters, because it's kind of like this frenzied, uncontrollable wrath of destruction. Then we also what's called the Curse of Anarion rule. As soon as a Lord of Anarion is introduced to 1 wound, he gets a ward save of 3 up for the rest of the battle. This has no effect on attacks that would outright kill him before he is reduced to 1 wound, like a spell or attack with multiple wounds special rule. If he were to suffer multiple wounds in a single phase, roll 1 save at a time, if he has any, for each wound suffered until the ward save takes effect. So that's the situation we have here. So these guys can be really good in close combat. It's kind of like a situation of risk benefit. This guy does have some significant risks associated to him, but he's also got some significant benefits as well. So that's kind of neat as well. All right, so moving on to dragons. Dragons have relatively stayed the same for the most part, so that part is no change really there. We have that introduction of the new natural armor special rules to scaly skin, so we do have that. Moving on to Citizen Levy, so here's our core choices for the most part. As you can see, we still have our archers, pretty much exactly the same stats as before. Same thing with Spearmen, they exactly have the same thing for the most part. The only difference now is that they actually fight an extra rank. That's an actual special rule for them. So for those of you who are really upset that they changed the Valor of Ages, the Martial Prowess rule, they still get that extra bonus to fight in close combat, which is still pretty nice. Now, let's go and talk about Warriors real quick. This is a brand new unit that's actually been brought in with this edition as well. And this one's actually kind of nice, because the reason why is that it doesn't really show it here too much on the rules, because it's pretty much exactly the same as Warriors. You might be thinking to yourself, well, Commander Cheapskate, why would I take Warriors if they don't have as much ability as Spearmen or Archers? The reason why you want to take these guys is because you will be able to use them as skirmishers if you want to. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the actual army composition rules as well. This unit was actually a throwback from the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. When I first got into Warhammer Fantasy Battle, this wasn't a unit that you could actually take. They weren't Spearmen or Archers, but they're just general warriors who could fight, and they're actually just a little bit cheaper than Spearmen. So I think it's really cool that Mathias Eliasson has brought this rule in there as well. So that part is really neat. So of course we have Lothran Seaguard. That has pretty much stayed the same for the most part as well. Same thing with Sea Helms. There hasn't been really much change between the Sea Helm or excuse me, or the Lothran Skycutter. So those have relatively stayed the same as well. Same thing with Silverhelm Knights. Silverhelm Knights have pretty much stayed the same. The only significant rule change that's happened for Silverhelm is that the cavalry rules now for troop types has a much different rule set now associated to it due to the update for the 9th edition rules. At the same time, we also have Reaver Knights. Those guys really stay the same as well. Now, there has been some changes to Sword Masters of Hoth. So let's go and talk about that real quick. So getting past the fluff here, so let's go and talk about them. So you can see here, they still have some pretty good stats from back when they originally had it. They still have Elven Grace and Martial Prowess, as well as Valor of Ages. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if they don't have Always Strike First now, how do their great weapons affect them now? So we're going to talk about that real quick. They have this special rule called Sword Master. It says models with this special rule ignore initiative penalties from great weapons and gain an ward save of 6 up against shots from all non-magical missile attacks fired at the unit's front arc. So as you can see, that's how they kind of corrected that problem as well. Since they don't have Always Strike First, they do have this new special rule now where great weapons are no longer penalizing them. And from the 9th Age edition, sorry, not 9th Age, that's a horrible rule system. I do apologize. Forgive me for bringing up that horrible game in this video review. With the 9th edition rules for great weapons, what ends up happening is you have a -2 to your initiative instead. They took away the always strike last rule with great weapons. You also get a 2-up strength bonus in the very first round of combat and a 1-up strength bonus for the rest of combat, and you only suffer a -2 initiative penalty. So in this case, these guys will be strength 5 in the very first round of combat and then strength 4 for subsequent rounds afterwards. And of course, this rule has also been attached to the Lord Masters of Hoeth as well, who relatively stayed the same in this edition for the most part. Now, White Lions of Trace. Let's go and talk about these guys real quick. Now, these ones have actually had some significant changes done to them as well, so let's go ahead and talk about those changes. So as you can see here, they're still strength 4, 3 toughness. They still only have 1 attack, just like in the previous edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. They still have Elven Grace, Forest Strider, Martial Prowess. They're still stubborn, and they still have the Valor of Ages. Now they made some changes with the Lion Cloak now. So once again, the Lion Cloak, they only give you 1-up save against missile attacks, so that rule has stayed the same. However, with the Woodsman's Axe, though, they've changed it a little bit. It's still a great weapon, and White Lions may make use of one of the following special rules in close combat and situations described below. So they're still a great weapon for that most part, but they've added these 3 different attacks. Now these 3 attacks, Lion Rampant, Lion Leaping, and Lion Claw, those were the same kind of rules that they had from, I believe it was the 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, where they updated the rules for the High Elves there, and that's where we saw these rules before, and these ones have different effects, which are actually pretty cool. So you have what's called Lion Rampant, which means that Lion Rampant can be used in a turn when choosing to hold as a charge reaction. The White Lion gains a 6-up parry for special rule for the duration of close combat. Then you have what's called Lion Leaping special rule. Lion Leaping can be used in a turn where the White Lions are charging. The enemy unit is subject to the Always Strikes Last special rule for the duration of close combat. So that's how they get around that when you're taking the offense, which is actually kind of cool. And then this one here, which is really important, what is called Lion Claw, says Lion Claw can be used against monstrous infantry, monstrous beasts, and monstrous cavalry. Against these troop types, the White Lions have the heroic Killing Blow special rule in the first round of close combat. So this one is extremely useful against those larger units, so that part is kind of neat. It kind of harkens back to that 5th edition rules where they had some pretty good attacks and defensive and offensive capabilities for the White Lions, so that part is extremely awesome. And of course, we have White Lions of Trace. Those guys have relatively stayed the same for the most part, not much significant change there. Same thing with Terranok Chariots. They have done exactly the same thing for those guys. Not much has really changed for 8th edition for that particular unit as well. Same thing with Dragon Princes of Kalador. They've pretty much stayed the same, except this time though they made a little bit of a difference for their armor. So for their Dragon Armor now, Dragon Armor gains the wearer the Immunity Flaming Attack special rule. Now before they would get a 2-up ward save against flaming attacks, now they're just completely immune to it, period. So that part is extremely cool as well. So that part is kind of neat. So moving on, we also have Shadow Warriors. Shadow Warriors are still there, as you can see. They still pretty much have the same rules that they had before in Warhammer 8th edition. So not much really changed there. Same thing with Sisters of Avalorn. They relatively stay the same as well. Same thing with Handmaidens of the Everqueen. They pretty much stay the same for the most part, so not much has really changed there. Now, let's talk about Phoenix Guard real quick. So for Phoenix Guard, they relatively stay the same, so not much change is taking place there. Same thing with their Anointed of Assyrian now. They have exactly the same thing. They do have what's called the Blessings of Assyrian, which means that all models in a unit that contains an Anointed of Assyrian have the Immunity Psychology special rule and may re-roll ward save results of 1. So gives you a little bit more of a boost now for your units when you guys actually have that character. Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers have relatively stayed the same, so not much of a significant change there. Same thing with the Phoenixes, they relatively stay the same as where there. However, we do have a brand new monster that we can use now for these units, and those are called Mirror Worms, which is actually kind of cool. So the Mirror Worm, as you can see here, has movement 6, weapon skill 6, 0 ballistic skill, 5 strength and toughness and wounds, 3 initiative, 5 attacks, 7 leadership. It's got the aquatic special rule as well as natural armor 3. It's got a 4-up regen save as well. As you see, they have this powerful tail attack, which means the Mirror Worm may make 1 extra attack at strength 7 and initiative 1. So this one's actually kind of cool. We actually get to see this monster unit being used in games of Warhammer Fantasy Battle as well. And of course, we have our Elven mounts as always, Elven steeds, Pegasi, as well as unicorns. Those have relatively stayed the same as well. We also have our Great Eagles. Those are relatively the same. Same thing with Griffins. They're pretty much the same as well, so not much change there. Now, let's go and talk about our special characters for this one. So let's go and talk about Tyrion real quick, the Defender of Ulthuan. He actually has a few changes to his stats as well. As you can see, they decided to use some of the end time rules that they associate with this guy as well. So for example, he has the Curse of Anarion rule that's attached to him, so we do have to worry about that. And it says, Defender of Ulthuan, if Tyrion's army's general has aspiring presence now has a range of 18 inches, so he no longer has to be the general. You could choose somebody else to be the general if you want to. So that part's kind of cool. He also has a new special rule called Riposte. Tyrion has a 6-up parry save special rule even while mounted. For each successful parry save made, he may immediately make an additional attack back at the model who struck the blow. So that part is kind of cool. He's also got the Feint special rule, which means that Tyrion may reroll any failed rolls to hit in close combat. So like I said before, they added some significant buffs to him as well. Now for his magic items, Sunfang, his magical weapon, still gives you a 3-up strength, which is really cool. That still has flaming attack, which is nice. However, though, his flaming breath attack, though, has been reduced to strength 3 instead of strength 4, so that part's kind of sad. But then again, when you look at his close combat attacks, it kind of makes sense, though, so I can understand why they made that rule change. We also have the Dragon Armor of Anarion as well. The Dragon Armor of Anarion grants Tyrion a 1-up armor save as well as a 4-up ward save and grants immunity to flaming attacks, so that part's kind of cool. And then we also have the Heart of Avalorn. The Heart of Avalorn gives Tyrion the magic resistance 2-up special rule. In addition, if Tyrion suffers an unsaved wound that would kill him, including unsaved rules that have killed him as a result from Killing Blow, Heroic Killing Blow, or multiple wound special rules, roll a d6 before removing him as a casualty. On a 2-up, Tyrion negates the wound and the Heart of Anarion is destroyed. Otherwise, Tyrion is removed as a casualty as normal. So that part's kind of neat, which means he only has like 1 more wound left. Before, with the Heart of Avalorn, if you've actually passed that 2-up, he actually regenerated all of his wounds. They've taken that away in this case. So whether you agree with it or disagree with those rule changes, those are some significant changes that we see for Tyrion. So up next we have Teclis, the High Lord Master of the White Tower. So let's go and talk about this character real quick. And the character of Teclis is actually kind of interesting. They actually give this guy a roller coaster effect with every edition change. He's either like super buffed out or super nerfed between each of the different editions that they create for him. So let's see what the Warhammer Army project has done for this character. So as you can see, his stats relatively stay the same. His magic, Teclis is level 4 wizard. He does not choose spells, even normal rules, so that still stays the same. He can either know all the lore of high magic rules or 1 spell from each of the 8 lores of magic, so that part is still there. He has that brand new Curse of Anarion rule, so that still takes effect. Same thing with Elven Grace, Lilith's Blessing, Martial Prowess, as well as Valor of Ages. So let's talk about his magic items real quick. So Sword of Teclis has relatively stayed the same. All hits from the Sword of Teclis wound on a 2-up and wounds caused by it ignore armor save, so that has relatively stayed the same. We have now the Potion of Inner Strength, which is brand new. 1 use only. At the start of any turn, Teclis may drink his Potion of Charoi. When he does so, he will increase his weapon skill and initiative to 6 and strength, toughness, and attacks to 3 for the remainder of the turn. So that potion is still, kind of a new thing that we have here. It makes it a little bit better in close combat. Then we also have the Moon Staff of Lilith. This staff gives Teclis 1 extra power and dispel dice in each magic phase. And once per game, the Moon Staff of Lilith can unleash its full power. It can either be used at the start of any of Teclis' magic phases, in which case a bonus power dice is added to every casting attempt Teclis makes that phase. Or if Teclis suffers a miscast, he can choose to ignore it. In either case, this staff will cease to provide any additional dice for the rest of battle. So we see that new rule update now with his magic, which is pretty fair in my opinion. It's actually a very fair rule set for that one. Then we have the Scroll of Hoeth, 1 use only. The Scroll of Hoeth follows the rules of Dispel Scrolls. In addition, immediately after this spell has been resolved, both Teclis and the caster must roll a d6. If Teclis scores higher, the caster immediately forgets the spell, otherwise nothing happens. So that Scroll of Hoeth has had just a little bit of a change added to it. And then lastly, we have the War Crown of Safri. The War Crown of Safri allows Teclis to reroll the result of any randomized spell effect, such as the number of hits inflicted by a magic missile. And while that one doesn't give him the 1-up casting bonus anymore, that's kind of sad. But at the same time, though, I kind of understand what they're trying to do for that one. So that one is pretty neat as well. So those are the rules now that we start seeing for Teclis. So up next, we have Ilariel, the Radiant, the Everqueen of Everlorn. So let's go and talk about her real quick. As you can see, pretty much stays the same for the most part. We got the Boon of Isha, which means all attacks made by models in the Everqueen's unit add +1 to all hit rolls, and they're also magical attacks, which is kind of nice. We also have Seeing Chaos Bane, which says at the start of each of Alarielle's magic phases, before rolling for the winds of magic, every unit with the demonic special rule within 12 inches of Alarielle has radiant suffering d6 strength 4 hits distributed as for shooting attacks. However, Alarielle suffers a -d3 penalty to her casting attempts if there is one or more model with the demon special rule within 12 inches. So that one is really cool that they kind of changed that rule up a little bit. Then we also have the Touch of the Everqueen. If Alarielle makes a successful to hit in close combat, that model is reduced to weapon skill 1 for the remainder of the phase. And if Alarielle is within a unit of Handmaidens of the Everqueen, the whole unit becomes unbreakable, which obviously makes sense. For magic items, we have the Shield Stone of Isha. The Shield Stone of Isha grants Alarielle the Radiant and her unit a 5 ward save against mundane attacks. We have the Star of Avalorn. At the start of your movement phase, nominate a single friendly character within 12 inches. That model immediately regains a single wound lost early in the battle. Alarielle can only restore her own wounds if there are no other viable targets within range. And then, of course, we have the Stave of Avalorn. One use only. The Stave of Avalorn is used in the magic phase. When used, it allows Alarielle to immediately attempt to cast a spell that she has already cast that phase, even if the casting attempt failed or was miscast. The spell is otherwise cast according to the normal rules. So once again, we're starting to see a little bit of a changes taking place here for the special characters, but it's pretty neat as well. Now we of course have Elthorian the Grim, the Warden of Tor Yvriz. He has relatively stayed the same, actually, so there isn't really much rules for him. Not much in terms of differences, so we're not really going to go too much in depth with him because he's relatively stayed the same. Same thing with Alith Anar, the Shadow King. That character has relatively stayed the same as well, so we're not really going to focus too much on him. However, we do have a brand new special character. This guy is Imric, the Lord of Dragons, the Dragon Prince of Calador. So this guy's actually kind of cool. We haven't seen Imric since what is it? The 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I think they brought him back for 6th edition for a little bit, and now he's back in 9th edition, which is kind of cool. So let's go and talk about him real quick. So as you can see, he's got 5 movement, 8 weapon skill, 7 ballistic skill, 4 strength, 3 toughness, 3 wounds, 9 initiative, 4 attacks, and 10 leadership. So he's pretty kid out for kill. And Minethir, his dragon, is also still pretty kid out with all multiple 7s for his stats as well. So of course we have our rules for the dragon as well. So we have Dragonkin. No dragon will fight Imric. So that part's kind of cool. If they're in base contact with other models and not challenging them, they can fight them instead. Otherwise, they may do nothing. The riders still fight as normal. So if you're fighting an opponent who's got dragons, this is the guy you definitely want to have with you as well. We also have Loyal Bond. Whenever Imric takes an unsaved wound, Minethnir will take subject to hatred against the model or unit, then inflict the wound for the remainder of the turn. We do have his magic items again. We do have the Star Lance. When charging, Imric gains a strength bonus 1 in addition to the normal strength bonus from his lance for a total of strength bonus 3, and ignored armor saves a special rule as well. So still very good in close combat with that when he's charging. We have the Armor of Calador. Armor of Calador grants the wearer a 2-up armor save. In addition, the Armor of Calador grants the bearer a ward save of 6-up and immunity to flaming attacks. So nothing's changed there. And then of course we have the Dragon Horn. One use only. At the start of any of his own turns, Imric may sound the Dragon Horn. This fills his army with pride, and all friendly high elf units may reroll any failed rally and psychological tests until the start of their next turn. So that's relatively stayed the same as well. So it's kind of neat seeing the return of Imric the Dragon Prince. It's kind of cool to see that character coming back as well. And of course, we also have some more characters too. We have Belinair the Wise. He's a Blade Lord of the White Tower, the Lord Master of Safri. So we have this special character here as well. 5 movement, 6 weapon skill, 5 ballistic skill, 4 strength, 3 toughness, 3 wounds, 9 initiative, 3 attacks, and 10 leadership. He is a level 3 wizard, and he's just like a regular lore master, taking the signature spells from each of the different lores as well. He still has Elven Grace, Martial Prowess, Sword Master, as well as Valor of Ages. He has the Glamour of Hoeth, means enemies who declare a charge against Bellinor or his unit must reroll successful charge distance rolls. So Bellinor, he's kind of a character they've kind of had coming in and out of different editions of Warhammer Fantasy. So that part's kind of cool as well. And he's also got magic items too. He's got the Blade of Bel Coradris. This wet blade has ignores armor save special rules against non-magical armor, but magical armor works as normal. In addition, once per battle at the beginning of any close combat phase, Bellinor can unleash the fires of the Capture Star. He then gains D6 attacks with a flaming attack special rule that turn. So very impressive there. He has the Stife of Sios. Belnar may add an additional free power dice to one spell attempt each turn. And we also have the Book of the Phoenix, which is a chatted item that says, at the beginning of the battle, Belnar may read one of the verses from the book. The effect will last from the end of the game unless the book is destroyed or nullified by some means. We have the Verse of Rebirth. If Belnar is ever killed, he will immediately burst into flames, causing a flaming strength 6 hit on each model, friend or foe, in base contact with them, and return to life with D3 wounds. He may not be positioned in any high elf. He may be positioned in any high elf unit on the battlefield. This does not apply if Belnar is caught in pursuit, one use only. So that makes sense. The Verse of Flame Eternal. This verse will allow Belnar to automatically cast one of his spells without using any power dice once per magic phase. It can still be dispelled as normal as at a power level 5. Then we have the Verse of Destruction. This verse will double the strength of Belnar, giving him an effective strength of 8. So this guy is not only a wizard who can kick your butt academically, he can kick your butt literally. And we also have Cloak of Stars as talisman. All shooting and close combat attacks that strike Belnar will resolve at -1 strength with a minimum of 1. So this guy, very, very powerful character in my opinion. And it's kind of neat that they're bringing back some of these older special characters into the rule set, which I think is really, really cool as well. So the next special character we're going to talk about is Sea Lord Aslan, Master of the Mist, Herald of Mathland. He's basically a Sea Helm special character as well. He's also brand new to this book. First of all, he's got Movement 5, Weapon Skill, Ballistic Skill 7, Strength 4, Toughness 3, 3 wounds, 8 initiative, 3 attacks, as well as 10 leadership. He has the Elven Grace, Martial Prowess, Naval Discipline, Valor of Ages, and Wind Rider special rules that we see from the Sea Helm as well. He's also got the Master of the Mist special rule. It says immediately after both armies have been fully deployed, including scouts, each unit of Lothern Sea Guard and Eagle Claw bolt throwers in Aslan's army gets to fire as if it was the shooting phase, adding plus D6 to their range. So very, very powerful ability right there. So we also have magic items. He has the Bow of the Seafarer, which is a magic weapon. The Bow of a Seafarer is a bolt thrower with the profile given below. Aslan can shoot the bow even if he moves, but not if he marches. So that part is extremely cool. And then of course we have the Mask of the Murderlord. This mask confers a 6-up armor save. In addition, the bearer gains the River Strider special rule, which is it's okay. Moving on, we have Caradrian, the captain of the Phoenix Guard. He has remained relatively unchanged, so we're going to skip him for the most part. Same thing with Corhill, Hunter Captain of the White Lions. He's remained unchanged for the most part as well, so we're going to skip him too. And then we have also a new character named Siliphin, the Slayer of Monsters, Hawk of the Anuli. So I believe this character was in the 6th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, I believe is where he was at. So let's go and talk about him real quick. So for his stats, 5 movements, 6 weapon skill and ballistic skill, 4 strength, 3 toughness, 2 wounds, 7 initiative, 3 attacks, and 9 leadership. He's got the Elven Grace, Martial Prowess, Scouts, as well as Valor of Ages special rule. He's got 2 magical items. He has Foebane, which is a magic weapon, against monsters, infantry, monstrous cavalry, and monstrous beasts and monsters. This sword will always wound on a 2-up, so very cool. And he's also got the Armor Protection, which is heavy armor, and gives him a 4-port save. So that part's kind of neat as well. Alright, so now we're going to talk about magic and magic items real quick. For the most part, the spell effects have relatively stayed the same, as well as the lore attributes for Lore of High Magic. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this one, just because it's relatively the same, so not much change is taking place for the most part as well. Now, we do have some changes to some of the magic items for the most part, so let's go on and talk about those real quick. So, the Reaver Bow, Blade of Leaping Gold, Shield of the Mirrorworm, those are really stayed the same. Same thing with Shadow Armor. It has relatively stayed the same as well. The difference, though, is now it counts as medium armor, which gives the guy a 5-up armor save. So that part's kind of neat. So that's changed a little bit. Same thing with the Golden Crown of Atrazar. That is relatively stayed the same. Gives you some wounds for killing blow and multiple wounds. So that's kind of nice. Moranian, there we go. Moranian's Waste Shard has also relatively stayed the same as well. The only difference, though, is now archers and spearmen, and now we have warriors, which is that new unit they can use there. Up to 30 models in size, so that's a little bit of a difference there. Gem of Sunfire, as well as what you call Kane's Ring of Fury. Relatively the same there as well, so not much change. Same thing with the Cloak of Beards and the Book of Hoeth, that stayed the same. Now, everyone's favorite magic item, the Banner of the World Dragon, they did kind of nerf it a little bit. I was kind of sad about that. All models in the unit that carries the Banner of the World Dragon now have magic resistance 5-up special rule, so meh. And furthermore, all dragons, friend or foe within 12 inches of the World Dragon, have a stubborn special rule. So, depending on your viewpoint, whether you think this is a good magic item or not is entirely up to you. I'm kind of sad to see that they nerfed it a little bit. I thought it was always kind of cool seeing an opponent who had the banner of the World Dragon. It may seem kind of messed up to say it, but the reason why is because I always loved fighting against units that had the banner of the World Dragon just to make them bleed. It was very satisfying to defeat those opponents who had that magical item and just kind of like scoffed at anybody who thought, oh, the item is too OP, it's too powerful. No, it's not. You just got to attack the unit without magic attacks. That's all you got to do. But that was kind of sad to see that go, because now I can't rub it into my opponent's faces anymore when I beat them with it. But anyway, that's just my personal opinion. So there you guys have it. That pretty much makes it the magic special rules as well as the magic items. The next thing we're going to talk about real quick are going to be the High Elf Army lists, and we're going to talk about that next. All right, so up next, we're going to talk about the army list real quick for the High Elves. So this is where we start seeing our point values and talk about the equipment they can take. So let's go ahead and talk about that one real fast. So first of all, I'll start with our lords real quick. As you can see, we have a significant increase for Tyrion and Teclis with 485 points and 460 points apiece. Same thing with Illyria the Radiant, she's 385. Elthorion the Grim is 475. And once again, this is the thing that always, this is the thing that always gets me. With the new monster special rules with the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, what ends up happening now is that what you do is you take the toughness and the wound characteristics of the monster, and that's what you use now for attacks in some cases. The thing that always killed me about that, though, is like, okay, let's take Stormwing, for example. He's a Griffin, right? He's got 4 wounds, and Elthorion has 3 wounds. So by that logic, somebody is losing their wounds characteristics when you combine profile that way. Either Elthorion has only 1 wound now because he lost 2 of his wounds because he decided to ride a Griffin one day, or Stormwing the Griffin is suffering 3 wounds, is only 1 wound now because Elthorion decided to ride him today, which I don't get. I just don't understand that logic, especially since you don't have to worry about monsters' reaction special rules anymore. In my opinion, you should just combine them. Just make it one giant pool and just make it really simple. So instead of having 4 wounds, Elthorion and Stormwing would actually have 7 wounds combined. Now, I know a lot of balance people out there, a lot of wimps who are like, oh, balance. They would say that, that's not fair or whatever. But here's the thing, though. You're paying 475 points for this guy, right? So you should have 7 wounds at this point, in my opinion. You're paying through the teeth for him to be on the battlefield. You might as well just combine the wounds together, right? So if anybody's like, oh, balance, what about balance, Commander Cheapskate? Well, the balance is you're paying for the points. That's just me. Not to mention the money you would spend on buying a miniature to do that as well. So you're kind of paying for the privilege, but that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's just the way I view things. All right, we have also Alithanaar. He's 250 points. We have Emmerich, who's 575 points as well. And Belanir the Wise is 405 points. Same thing with Sea Lord Asselin. He's also 240 points as well. And he could also be loaded upon a Sky Cutter if he wants to. So that part's kind of neat. We then, of course, have your princes, which is the most typical general that you usually have. That's relatively stay the same. Same thing with your archmages. You have that new Lord of Anarion rule. Now is worth 185 points, but he cannot ride. Yeah, sorry, no, he cannot ride. I'm sorry. He cannot be the army's general. So that's something you got to take into effect as well. We have our Lord Masters of Hoeth as well. Same thing with Korhil and Caradrian. They're still, this is relatively the same points. Same thing with Celiphin. He's the same amount of points as well for the most part. So that part's kind of neat. Of course, you got our heroes who can also be upgraded to our Armory Battle Standard Bearer, as well as our mages. We also have our Anointed of Assyrian, as well as our Lothern Sea Helms and our Dragon Mages of Calidor. Those guys have all relatively stayed the same for the most part. The new Mistweaver that we showed earlier, that's 85 points for that character, so we still have that, so that point's kind of neat too. Now, let's go to our core units real quick. So, for our core units for archers, they're about 12 points per model now. Still 30 points for full command. They can also carry light armor now, which only gives them half a point increase, so that's kind of cool. Or you can give them medium armor for 1 point apiece. Now, medium armor is the new armor system that's been introduced in the 9th edition rules. These guys have a 5-up armor save when you have medium armor. So the next question becomes, well, Commander Cheapskate, what happens if you have heavy armor? Heavy armor is now 4-up, so that part is kind of neat. So you can actually give these guys a 5-up armor save if you need to for your archers. So very cool there. We also have spearmen as well, and spearmen are now officially equipped with medium armor as well as a shield, which means these guys have a 4-up armor save against close combat attacks, which is really, really awesome. So kudos to that. These guys also have a 3-up armor save for being shot at from the front, so that part is really cool there. I really like that addition. And then, of course, we have this warrior special rule that we talked about earlier. These guys are worth 8 points per miniature. As you can see, they can swap out their shields for additional hand weapons. That's also free, or the entire unit can be upgraded to skirmishers for free, which is nice, having core skirmishing units. You can use these guys to be blockers, march blockers, chaff, or you can use them as ambushers if you use Moranian's Wayshard. You can also use that too. So this is really cool. They could also be upgraded with medium armor. So that part's kind of neat too. And of course, we got our Lothar Sea Guard. Those guys now all have medium armor as standard, and they could also take a magic standard with 25 points. So very cool there as well. Continuing other core choices, we do have Silver Helms, and Silver Helms can now take magic standards, which is really cool. It's worth 25 points to do that. Heavy armor, shield, Ithimil armor, so very cool for that little core choice there. Reaver Knights are about 14 points per model as well. They can also take medium armor and Ithimil barding as well. However, though, with the new special rules, if their armor save, I think if it's a 4-up, they can no longer become fast cavalry anymore. So that part's kind of sad. But at the same time, though, we are talking about normal cavalry that can also shoot. So pretty cool there as well. Makes them a little bit more survivable in combat. Now for special choices, we do have our Swordmasters of Hoeth. We do have the Standard Bearer upgrade for 50 points for magical standard. The champion, though, the Blade Lord, though, can no longer take a magic weapon. So, but I mean, in all fairness, though, I mean, who really equipped their champion with a magical weapon? I mean, in the old edition, really. I mean, if you think about it. And because they have heavy armor, they actually have a 4-up armor save now, which is very cool as well. Same thing with these guys. They have their medium armor with a 5-up armor. They can still take their 50-point magic bearer. We have our Lion Chariot of Trace as well as our Terranok Chariots. Those are relatively stay the same as well. Then we have our special units. We have our Dragon Princess of Caldor. Still relatively the same. Same thing with Shadow Warriors. They stay the same as well. Same thing with Sisters of Avalorn. Sisters of Avalorn now are no longer a rare unit choice anymore. They've been actually moved to special units. So that part is kind of cool there. And of course, you still have your your Eagle Claw Bloodthrower, and you can actually add an additional crew member now if you want to, which is actually kind of cool. So it makes it a little bit more survivable in close combat. And note, these guys are now Sea Guard crew now. They're just not normal just dudes who are just using a weapon. They're actually Sea Guards. They actually have the same weapons and characteristics as the Sea Guard from up here in your core choice. So that is really, really cool. Makes it a little bit more survivable in close combat. So that's kind of neat. Now, Phoenix Guard, however, have been moved from special choice into rare choice. I can kind of see that. I can see why they would do that, to be honest. Especially when you look at the rare duplication rules for the new 9th edition. You can only take one rare choice until you hit 3,000 points, in which case you can take a duplicate at 3,000. I personally don't like that. I just feel like you should be able to take whatever you want so long as you're within the percentages. But that's just me. I mean, that's just the way I see things. And of course, Handmaidens of the Everqueen, they're now within the rare units as well. And same thing with Great Eagles. See, that's another thing, right? A lot of people like to use Great Eagles as sight blockers, as march blockers, as well as War Machine Hunters. And now they just moved the one Eagle to a rare choice, which means that if you want to take 2 Great Eagles, you got to go to 3,000 points. That's just crazy to me. I don't think that's good. Same thing with Lothar Sea Cutters. They've also moved into rare choice as well. Flame Spire Phoenixes and Meerworms. Those guys could also be found within the rare unit choices as well. And your Frostheart Phoenix just takes a 20-point upgrade in order to become a Frostheart Phoenix. So yeah, there you guys have it. So that's what you guys have here for the army list as well. All right, my fellow Cheapskates, there you have it. This is my book review for the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle High Elves Army book. And for my overall impressions, I think it is an excellent resource, especially if you're planning on using it for 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Yes, there have been such significant rule changes to the army book. Whether you believe those are negative or positive changes, that's entirely up to your opinion. For the most part, I think a lot of the changes that have been made are mainly positive. It's actually really cool to see exactly this much detail and attention put into units. I really like the fact that they're bringing back a lot of the older special characters from older editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I also like the fact that they've included some Warhammer Age of Sigmar units in here as well, which I find that to be extremely cool. At the same time, I also like seeing some of the special rules from older editions of Warhammer Fantasy being brought into this one as well. It's very nostalgic for me to see that, which is really, really awesome as well. So if you are a High Elf player and you plan on playing some 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I highly recommend you download this from Mathias Eliasson's Warhammer Armies project blog. So that's good for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, then, guys. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.